Hello students, welcome back. In our last video, we did some pretty awesome things. We built out our gameplay world and our player for Broshi. And in this video, we're going to do some equally awesome things. But a lot of the work that we're going to do is going to be behind the scenes. We won't see a lot of visual changes here in this game. Right now, our game is sort of lacking in its ability to understand what we want it to do. We have to give our program the ability to know what state of the game we are in. So what are some of our options? Well, maybe we're in a start state where we want to show a start screen to the player and disable all of our player's movement or gameplay. Then we transition into a play state where we remove the start screen and we show them our game world, and the user can move Broshi around and begin to eat the falling blocks. Or we end the game. We get a game over. And so we would be in a lose state. And in this state, we'd maybe show a lose screen or a game over screen. And our program needs to be able to swap these states in and out. We have to be able to transition from the start state to the play state to the lose state back to the play state whenever the user wants to do that. And in doing so, we're going to draw or swap out screens. We'll put a start screen and then our play screen and then a lose screen and then our play screen. We'll call these screens overlays because they're going to sit over our game window. Our game window is never actually going to go away. It's always going to be there, and we'll just draw a start screen over it. And then when we want to play, we'll remove the start screen. And then when it's a game over, we'll draw a lose screen over the game window. And if we want to play again, we'll just remove that overlay. So let's head to the computer screen and let's dive into this lesson on game states and overlays. So I have lesson 2's starter file open right here in vscode.dev. I will minimize this file though, and we are going to open that file directly. So we're going to go to Broshi. We're going to go to lesson number 2, lesson 2's starter file right here. And here is our current state of the game. So our game world is here, and our player can move back and forth between our swap positions. So this, I think, is the exact same space or place we left off with in lesson 1. So as soon as I start the game, you can see I refresh the game. I'm thrown right here into the game world. What I'd really love to see is like a start menu, welcoming me to the game, explaining a little bit about the game, and prompting me to press enter to begin or something like that. So we've got to add that logic to our program here. We got to give our program the ability to understand what state we are in. And so in our mission checklist, mission number 1 says we have to add our game state values. So I'm going to hit Control F to open up my search bar, and mission 1 pops right up here because I had it highlighted, and I'll hit down to go to the next instance of the mission 1 tag. And that mission 1 tag puts me in our mission, game state values. Add the game state values for start, play, and lose. Use clear names so the game can switch between modes. All right, so it looks like we're creating a constant called game mode. We're creating a constant that finds us in our student edit zone. So we can build this out and then add to it as we see fit. Now, our game mode variable is going to equal an object. You can see we have those curly brackets right there. We've seen an object before. If I scroll down just a little bit, I have a player object, and objects have properties. So our player object has an X property, a Y property, and a swap lane property. We are going to create properties for our game mode object. Those properties are going to represent the various states that our game can be in. And I'm going to use all capital letters here to indicate that these are game states for us. So we are going to have a start property, and I will assign the start property a value of a string start. And then we'll create a play property, and I'll assign a value of the string play. And we'll also create a lose property, and I'll assign a value of the string lose. And so those are going to be the 3 states that we'll use for our game, start, play, and lose. But you could always come in and add more properties. You could add a pause state and give it a value of pause. You could create a menu state and give it a value of menu or inventory or whatever you think of here. Our system is going to work nicely for these states, and you can absolutely expand on this. So this is perfect for what we need for Broshi: start, play, and lose. All right, mission 1, I think, is done. But if you think about it, this is a constant. So this constant represents all of our potential game states. So as soon as I run my game, the options that I have for my game states is never going to change. I could be in start, I could be in play, I can be in lose. But what will change is the current state that I'm in. So I need to somehow have a variable that's going to keep track of if I'm in the start state, if I'm in the play state, or if I am in the lose state. And that can't be a constant because that's going to be something that changes. So let's go see what mission 2 has in store for us. Mission 2 finds us here in our section for gameplay variables, right outside of the student edit zone. And it says, let's set the current game mode to the title screen. Make the game begin in the correct state. So if you look, we have a new gameplay variable. It is called current game mode. And we're defining it with let, which means we are going to change its value over the life of our program. And right now it is set to null. Null is the empty data. It's nothing. Okay, so it's set to nothing right now. Well, we don't want that. In fact, when we start the game, we probably want our current game mode to be start, but we can't just type the word start. In fact, where do we have all of our game modes currently stored? It's right here in our game mode object. So we are going to use our game mode object and access one of its properties to get our values of start, play, or lose. So let's say current game mode is equal to the game mode object. I'll use a tab for autocomplete here, dot, which gives me access to everything this object has. It has a lose property, a play property, and a start property. And when we start the game, I'm going to set it equal to, tab for autocomplete, the game mode's start property. So now when we start our game, we have a variable that represents what state we are in. Our program now knows that we should be in the start state. It's just that we're not telling it to do anything if it is in the start state yet, right? We haven't written any instructions that says like, hey, if we're in the start state, draw the start screen. We don't have that. But our program is aware that it is in the start state. We are in start mode. So let's go to mission 3. What's mission 3 have us do next? It finds us in a function called draw start overlay. Okay, so draw start overlay. This is where we are going to create our start screen. Let's look at what's happening in this function. We first call no stroke, which means give me an invisible marker so you do not see the outline of the shape that I'm about to draw. And then we call fill, which means we're going to put some paint in our paint bucket. And look at what we're putting in there. We're putting in an RGB alpha string that has a transparency to it, an alpha channel of 0.85. That means we're going to be able to see behind the shape that we're about to make. It's going to be slightly transparent. And that's a really good thing because we draw a rectangle whose top left corner is 0, 0. So that's going to be right there, 0, 0. And then we go the width of our canvas and the height of our canvas. We are going to draw a rectangle that sits completely over our game window. It's going to be an overlay because that rectangle sits over the entire game window. And it will be transparent, so I still should be able to see slightly behind it. All right, and then it looks like we create a bunch of text. So we have text size is 18, and then we have what I would call flavor text. Broshi loves a tasty snack. Match colored snacks to eat them. Green snacks are extra powerful. Time them right to have massive meals. Press enter to start. So this kind of tells us a little bit about our game. Each one of these strings are positioned at a width over 2 in the X value. So that is smack dab in the center of our canvas. And then the height is our height of our canvas being multiplied by some decimal, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So let's talk a little bit about positioning. On the horizontal, this is an X position of 0, and then X increases as you go to the right till we get to our width. In the vertical direction, this is a Y position of 0, and then Y increases as you go down till you get to the height of your canvas. So if I took the height of my canvas and multiplied it by 1, boop, it put me all the way down here. If I took the height of my canvas and multiplied by 0.5, it put me right in the middle. If I took the height of my canvas and multiplied by 0.25, it would put me a quarter of the way down from the top. So essentially, we are multiplying our height by increasing decimals, which means we are going to just stack these strings one on top of each other. There's just going to be a string here, then a string here, then a string here, then a string here, going down. All right, but mission 3 says we should probably have the title on the game board, right? It would make sense if our title screen said Broshi. That should happen. So the first thing that we're going to note here is that the color that is currently in our paint bucket when we make all of these texts is our overlay background color. So we make our background and then we make all of our text the exact same color. We would never be able to see it. We need new paint in our paint bucket. So we're going to do fill, and then we will load in the text color. Tab for autocomplete, semicolon for good JavaScript. Now that that text color is set, that's that like dark green that we had saw in our last video, we should probably let our program know how do we want to position this text. Well, we're using width over 2, which is the center of our canvas. So I'm going to text align center and center. So we'll do text align center, text align center. And then I'm going to change my text size from 18. I'm going to make it bigger because this is going to be my title. So I'm going to do text size, and I'll do 56. And we'll make a text. So we'll call the text function, and I'm going to say Broshi. There's the title of my game. The X position of this string, because we are text aligned center in the horizontal direction, I'm going to use the width of my canvas divided by 2. And for my height, I'll do height times, I'll do a smaller decimal. I'll do 0.40. It looks like I've been going by, 0.05 each time. All right, I think my start screen is complete. Let's see it in action. All right, let's see. Hello, start screen, start screen. I mean, the game knows it's in the start state. We set that with our current game mode variable, and we made out our start screen, our overlay, but it's not being drawn yet. And the reason why here is because this right here is just a set of instructions. We wrote a set of instructions that are going to be followed anytime we call this function. So we must not be calling the function yet. Just because we write the instructions does not mean we are running the instructions. So perhaps mission 4 will get us to call that set of instructions. Oh, but it does not, because we made a start overlay, but we also need a lose overlay. So we have a function called draw lose overlay. And this function is going to be really similar to our start screen, our start overlay. We first say no stroke, give me an invisible marker so you do not see the outline of the shape that I'm about to make. We put some paint in our paint bucket, which is that very transparent white. And then we draw a rectangle that sits completely over our game window, hence the name, lose overlay. We change our paint color to the text color. We align center center. We change our text size and we say, oh no. I guess that's our way of saying our game is over. And then we have some flavor text. There were too many snacks. Broshi overate and is too full. Set up green snacks for big clears. So we kind of give some advice here. That game over condition is going to happen if those blocks get all the way up to the top where our little like danger zone is. And now we want to give some restart instructions. So the game's over. We would love for the player to play again. We have to just prompt them to play again. So we're going to create a text here. We'll call the text function, and I'm going to use a string, and I'll say press enter to try again. So that's the string that I'm going to display. I want it to have an X position of width divided by 2, and its vertical position will be the height times, let's keep stacking them going down, so I'll do 0.60, semicolon. And then we'll not only get them to play again, so they can press enter to play again, but I want to also give them the option to just go right back to our start overlay, like go back to the start screen. And so we'll say text, press R to return to the menu. And we'll do a width over 2 here in the X position, and our height will be height times 0.65. All right, so our lose overlay is now complete. So we have our start overlay. We have our lose overlay, but we are not seeing them at all. And so this is because these are just instructions. We are not running the instructions. Mission 5 tells us to show the correct overlay for the current game state. We have to explicitly tell the program when to run those two functions. And this finds us in our draw scene function. Remember, draw scene is getting called every single frame of the game. We draw our background, our drop zone, our player, our HUD, and now we want to draw overlays. See, I could just easily, like, if I wanted to just like comment this out, if I say like, hey, don't draw the background, I could just put 2 little vertical bars here, 2 forward slashes, and we will comment that out. And now our background doesn't get drawn. I don't want to draw the player, get rid of the player. but I want those things. That's happening. See, this function is getting called every frame of the game. Every frame, we're drawing all of this stuff. So now, if we're drawing things, why don't we just draw our start overlay? If I want to do that, I have to run the function that holds the information or the instructions for that. And so to run or call that function, I'm going to type out the function's name, draw start overlay, a tab for autocomplete here, and then 2 sets of parentheses to actually run those instructions, and a semicolon for good JavaScript. So now every single frame of the game, we should see our start overlay. And there it is. Broshi loves a tasty snack. Perfect. There is our little flavor text. So this looks really, really good. And you can see we have that transparent color, so I can still see the game world behind it. That is exactly what I want. Hey, that worked for our start overlay. Let's do it for our lose overlay as well. So let's do draw lose overlay, tab for autocomplete, a set of parentheses to run those instructions to call the function, and a semicolon for good JavaScript. So now let's take a look. That's sort of interesting. So it's like, okay, we drew our start overlay, and then over the start overlay, we drew our lose overlay. So it's like our overlays are stacking on top of each other, and that's not good. That's not what we want. We have like our game world, then our start screen, and then our lose screen all being drawn. See, I don't want to draw the start screen and the lose screen every single frame of the game. I only want to draw them if certain conditions are correct. So what we have to do here is we have to ask a question. If, and based on that question, if that question answers yes, then we will draw our start overlay. We'll ask another question. If, and then if the answer to that question is yes, then we will draw our lose overlay. We just got to figure out what these questions are. So when do we want to draw our start overlay? Well, I think we want to draw our start overlay only if our game is in the start mode. So if you remember back in mission 2, we created a variable called current game mode, tab for autocomplete here. We want to check to see what the value of current game mode is. And if it is equal to our start mode, let's draw our start overlay. So to check for equality, 1 equal sign assigns a value. 2 equal signs checks for loose equality. We'll use 3 equal signs to check for a strict equality. And we want to check to see if it is equal to the game mode object, and we're going to hit dot to get all of its properties, if it's equal to its start property. If that answers yes or true, this function will get called. Well, if this is not true, let's ask another question. So we'll say, okay, if current game mode, tab for autocomplete, 3 equal signs for strict equality, if it is equal to game mode dot lose, then we will draw our lose overlay instead. Perfect. So let's take a quick look. Now I should just see my start overlay. Hey, and there is just my start overlay because our current game mode is equal to start. Now, we're going to make it a little bit better. We're going to do one thing differently. Right now, we are asking 2 questions. We're asking, hey, is the current game mode start? If it is, draw the start overlay. And then we're asking, hey, is the current game mode lose? If it is, draw the lose overlay. But if our question here answered yes or true, we know the state of current game mode. It is equal to start. It will never be equal to lose. So there is no need to ask this question. This question only needs to be asked if our first question was no or false. So the way we can do that is by typing else if here. So if, else if. Now we will only ask that second question if the first question answered no or false. Perfect. So let's go, I'm going to go back to mission 2. Let's just make sure this is working. I'm going to go back to mission 2, which is where we set the value of our current game mode. When it's equal to start, our start screen shows. Really great. What if it was equal to lose? So now our start screen will not show, and our lose screen shows. Perfect. What if I set it equal to play? So now it's not start, it's not lose, so neither overlay should show, and our game window shows. Hey, that's perfect. This is working out wonderfully. I'm going to set it back to start though, because that's what we want to start our game in. And I don't want to be the one that has to type, changing the game mode. I don't want to type out lose or type out play. I just want the program to know when I want to switch or transition from one mode to the other. And that is where mission 6 is going to come into play. So let's look at mission 6. Oh, I lied. That is not where mission 6 is going to come into play. Mission 6 says we have a problem. We have a problem that we can update our movement when we are in the start or game over mode. And it's telling us we should only be able to do that during play mode. Let's test this out. So I'm in start mode. Here's Broshi right here. If I hit the arrow keys, oh yeah, Broshi can start to move. That should not happen. We should only move when we are in play mode. So we have to sort of disable that. So this finds us in our draw function. That draw function, which is called by the P5 library every single frame of our game. So if we're running at 60 frames per second, this is happening 60 times in a second. We ask a question using an if statement, and it currently says, if true. Well, that is a terrible question because true will always be true. This question always evaluates to yes. So that means the code that I have inside of these curly brackets is always going to run. We don't want that to happen though. We only want to update our player if a certain condition is true. So what is that condition? What is the question that we have to ask? Well, we only want to update our player if our current game mode variable is equal to 3 equal signs for a strict check of equality, our game mode object's play property. If we are in the play state, then go ahead and update the player. But if we are not in the play state, if the answer to this question is no or false, then our code will not run. We will not update the player, and the only thing we'll do is call draw scene over and over and over again. So let's test this. I refresh. I am in the start mode, which is not our play mode, so I should not be able to move Broshi. And right now I'm hitting my arrow keys and there is no movement of our little green friend. So mission number 6 is complete. We have done it. Let's move to mission 7. Mission 7 says, okay, well, you're there at the start menu, and the start menu clearly says, press enter to start. If you hit enter, you do not start the game, which is super, super sad. I would love to play the game. So we have to transition now from the start state into the play state to remove our start overlay and to enable our player being updated. So this finds us in a function called key pressed. Well, let's see. That function is right near draw and setup, our P5 game loop functions. Setup gets called once at the start of our game automatically. Draw gets called every single frame of our game automatically. And key pressed gets called automatically anytime the player, our user, presses a key on the keyboard. So it's not going to get called if the key is being held down, only in the time when it is actually pressed. So if I press, the L key, this function is going to run. If I press the T key, this function is going to run. If I press the Enter key, this function is going to run. And when it runs, we have access to the key that is pressed. So the first thing we do is we ask a question. We say, hey, if the key code of the key that was pressed is equal to enter. That means, was the enter key pressed? And if it was, we ask a follow-up question. So if you look here, we have a follow-up question. It says, if the current game mode is equal to our start mode, or 2 vertical bars, our current game mode is equal to the lose mode. So if we press enter and our current mode is start or our current mode is lose, what do we want to do? Well, we want to transition into the play state. Because look here, it says press enter to start. And on our lose screen, it's probably going to say I think it says press enter to play again. We want to go into the play state if we press enter. So the way we go into the play state is we just say, hey, let's take our current game mode variable and we'll assign it a value. So one single equal sign here of our game mode object's play property. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see what happens. I refresh my game, I hit start, and now I can play. So we have transitioned. So this is really, really good. Now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. We transitioned to our start mode. So now I can go from start mode, hit enter, and now I'm in play mode. But how do I test my lose mode, right? My lose property. My lose overlay. There's no way I can end the game right now. There's no gameplay. Well, if I scroll down just a little bit in this key pressed function, I have rigged up a hotkey for us. So we ask a question, hey, if the key was enter, do all this. But if the key was not enter, we ask a question right here. If the key was G or the key was capital G. Because these are letters on the keyboard, we can just use key here. So did we press G or capital G? And if that is the case, we then ask a follow-up question. Is our current game mode play? Well, it is. Right now we're in the play state. Well, if we press G, we set our current game mode to lose. So the G key can force a lose screen for us. Let's see in action. I press G, and it is a game over. Perfect. Now, we are told here we should be able to press enter to try again, right? According to here, if I press enter, was the key code enter? Yes. Is the current game mode start? Well, no. Or is the current game mode lose? Yeah, the current game mode is lose. So we will trigger this, and we should go back to the play state. So when I hit enter, I'm right back into the play state, which is great. This is working wonderfully. But if you notice, my player is not in the center anymore. It's back over here where we died. And if I come over here and I force a game over, G, and I hit enter, we're right back where we died. When I restart my game, I have to make sure that I reset the player back to its beginning position. In fact, I probably should reset everything in my game when I reset the game to play. Thankfully, we have a function here called reset game to defaults, which is going to reset everything in our game for us. Right here, it resets the player's position. So we need to make sure that we call that here in mission 7 before we set our game mode back to play. I will set reset or call reset game to defaults, tab for autocomplete, a set of parentheses to run our set of instructions, and then a semicolon. Now, if I refresh the page, I transition from the start state to the play state, I move over here and I force a game over, it's game over, and when we hit enter to go back to the play state, everything is reset. Perfect. Now, there's just one last thing we got to do here, because we can play and then we get a game over and it says, yeah, you could press enter to try again, or you could press R to return to the menu. So when I hit R, I want to go back to my menu or my start state. And right now, nothing is happening. So we have to wire up that key press to cause a specific action. So inside key press, I press the R key. We ask a question. Was the key the enter key? Nope. So none of this code is going to run right here because it's going to get skipped. This question answered no. But then we ask another question here. It says if false under mission 8. False is a terrible question. False is always false. So the answer to this question is always no, meaning our code inside of these brackets is never going to run. Well, that code, what does it do? It resets our game to default values, and then it sets our current game mode to the start mode, which would show our start screen. So this is exactly what we want to do when the user presses the R key. So we're going to change our question here from false, and we're going to say, hey, if the key that was pressed is equal to 3 equal signs for strict equality, lowercase r, or was the key equal to capital R? And we'll do that so in case the player has, our user has caps locks on, we can still reset our game. If that was the case, we are going to run our code right here. And with that, I believe our lesson here on game states and overlays is complete. Let's test the entire system. So when I refresh my game, we are in the start state. Player update is disabled. I cannot move until I press enter to start. When I press enter, we transition from the start state to the play state. And now I can play the game. I can move back and forth and left and right. And if I hit G to force the game over, we'll transition to the lose state, and my lose overlay shows. Wonderful. I can go from our lose state back into the play state by hitting enter, and everything resets. My player is right back to where I am. We play again. I hit a game over to transition from the play state to the lose state. And if I want to go back to the start state, all I do is hit R. The moment I hit R, we are in the start state, and the start overlay shows, and our player gets reset. Perfect. So I'm really happy with how this system has been implemented. We now have the ability for our program to sort of swap states in and out based on user action from start to play to lose. And we show our overlays correctly. We said in the beginning of this video that we have 3 states in our game, start, play, and lose, but you could build this system out. You could put a pause state, and then you could draw a pause overlay, just a rectangle that sits over the screen that has the word pause on it. And you could trigger that anytime maybe the user presses the P key. And that might be a nice, challenging, and doable thing that you could try to implement in this game. But for us, for Broshi, we're going to just keep our 3 states here of start, play, and lose because it works and it's going to work well for us moving forward. So I'll see you in the next video.